All right, everybody, welcome to the Bagland Podcast. It has been some time since I have done a pre-recorded podcast. So tonight's going to be great. We're going to have a lot of different issues to talk about. The first thing is I want to give a shout out to my ancestors that built this country from free, built it from scratch, and did not get paid for it. Happy Juneteenth to everybody. Now, to start this off right, we got Solomon in the building, so shout out to him. Let me get my... No, that wasn't the right button, but anyway. So he'll be joining me on this, and we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different issues. The first black man that was killed in the Revolutionary War, I believe that was a Revolutionary War, was that 1776, Crispus Attucks. Foundational blacks are the most patriotic people on the face of the damn planet. We were stripped of our heritage, stripped of our native tongue, brought over here to work for free because all of the European immigrants did not want to do it. They couldn't make it in Europe. A lot of times when you start hearing race soldiers talk, they talk about Europe and France and all these places like it was just a super duper heavily popping place. And the fact of the matter is that place was a shithole. I noticed Donald mentioned something about Africa being a shithole, but the fact of the matter is entire Europe was a shithole. Europeans really didn't start getting their weight up until they came over here. And when they showed up, they had a whole bunch of free land. The so-called founding fathers had a bunch of free land. They were given nothing but free land, millions and millions and millions of acres. So as foundational blacks, we are the architects and engineers of American culture, rock and roll, blues, hip-hop, even the damn refrigerator trucking industry. A lot of people wouldn't have no damn Chipotles if it wasn't for a foundational black. If you ever heard of Thermo King. Thermo King is a company that was founded by a foundational black, and I think it was a white dude. It was a foundational black and a white dude in Minnesota. A lot of people don't know that. So I want to look this dude up, and we want to give this brother his flowers. Shout out to that brother. I think his name Frederick McKinley Jones. And we're going to be going by some black Americans who really changed the game and made this country what it is. He was born in Covington, Kentucky. And you can still hear me, bro?
Yeah.
Okay, he was born in Covington, Kentucky. Turn on my little Arctic air because it's still a little hot in here. The AC ain't kicked in. He was born in 1893. He had 61 patents and 40 for refrigerating technology. He co-founded Thermo King, and he served as a sergeant of World War I. In 1912, he moved to Haylock, Minnesota, and he worked as a mechanic on a 50,000-acre farm. Now, the farm was owned by James J. Hill. And let me tell y'all something about James J. Hill. James J. Hill was a white guy that was born in 1838, died in 1916. Everybody in the sound of my voice from Minnesota, y'all need to go down to Summit. Summit Avenue has some of the most beautiful homes and one of the richest mansions in America. Anybody knows about Summit that's from Minnesota, the James J. Hill Mansion is probably one of the most, it's one of the more strangest, but one of the more beautiful mansions I've ever been in my life. It's literally like a damn castle when you go in there. Outside, it's big. I took a tour. Me and my wife went down there maybe about 5 to 6 years ago, and I always tell people, y'all should go down there. Now, none of his kids wanted the house. That's the story. That's very interesting because none of the kids wanted the house. I don't know if they was up there killing niggas in there or doing some Jeffrey Dahmer stuff or whatever, but none of the kids wanted the house. So, but I'm telling you, that house is something else. But this guy had a railroad. He had a railroad company. But, now it's a museum. But anyway, the brother, Frederick McKinley Jones, his pops was Irish, and his mom was foundational. He was born in 1893. So he was on James J. Hill's farm. He went to World War I, put in some work there, used his mechanical skills. In military service, after World War I, he returned back to the farm. He worked as a mechanic while learning about electronics, and he built a transmitter for the town's first radio station. He also invented a device to combine sound with motion pictures. This attracted the attention of local entrepreneur Joseph Numero of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now, Numero owned a company that manufactured audio equipment called Ultraphone Systems and renamed it to Cinema Supply. So he hired Jones in 1927 as an electrical engineer to improve the audio equipment made by film. So he worked on converting silent movie projectors into audio-visual projectors. And see, what we was told in school is all niggas did is pick cotton and work hard and did civil rights. Oh, no. Our folks did a whole lot more than that. This brother developed an X-ray machine. He developed an early prototype of a snowmobile. I didn't know that. When he found they said Numero, the guy he worked with, sold his movie sound equipment business to RCA and formed a new company in partnership with Jones, the U.S. Thermal Control Company, later named Thermo King, and it became a $3 million business in 1949. Now that's big. Basically, that nigga was like the damn P Diddy of refrigerator machines. You know what I'm saying? In 1949, that was big money. So the portable cooling units designed by him was very important under World War II. It preserved blood, medicine, food for army hospitals and open battlefields. So this brother changed the world. In 1977, he was posthumously inducted in the Minnesota Inventors Hall of Fame. You know how they do, niggas. They give you the Hall of Fame after you're dead. You know, but he got inducted into the Hall of Fame of Minnesota Inventors. And you know, he died of lung cancer in 1961. So, you know, shout out to that brother. So so that's just one gem we giving you. We're also the architects of the chair. Alabama had to get some straightening last year. I believe that was last year. Now, imagine being young Frederick Douglass picking cotton and fighting for his country that's not his, to be property and still fight. Then he went on to fight for the Chinese, and we wasn't even free around that time and never asked for repayment. We just kept fighting for others. Nat Turner, Ida B. Wells. Imagine being young Ida B. Wells, putting race soldiers on blast after them lynching your friends. You know, around that time, you had black folks that came off the plantation, cut literacy in half in less than 30 years, and was building their own businesses. We already built the country, so of course it was easy for us to build businesses and anything else. So this brother, it was typical of most black folks that was doing well in the early 1900s, where race soldiers was hating. And so Ida B. Wells' friend, he had like a grocery store that was doing very well. The white folks had a grocery store across the street. So they were so jealous of this brother doing well that they made up the old white woman lie. Oh, he touched a white woman, all this, you know, they pulled some Emmett Till shit. And they lynched the two brothers. Ida B. Wells didn't back down. She owned a newspaper, and she did something around that time that was kind of unheard of. She said, listen, y'all are some race soldiers, you some white supremacists, you some cowardly bastards, and she printed that shit. Called out the race soldiers in the early 1900s. Like, you a black person, you gonna get strung up for that. They really didn't know what to do with her. So I think they blew up her newspaper or something like that. She ended up going to Chicago, and she started traveling around, you know, writing the lynching horrors. Basically, it was putting the Me Too movement back on the race soldiers. Race soldiers were basically saying that black people were genetically inferior and all they could do was rape and this, that, and the third. And Ida B. Wells just went and got all the documentation. She went and started interviewing people where they lynched her brother, and she just went and got the information and said, all right, well, what happened here? And back in them days, white folks could just be like, look, yeah, we strung him up. Yeah, we know he didn't rape that white woman. It was consensual, but you know we had to kill somebody. And they would tell her that shit flat out. And so she printed it all up. She found all the cases and basically charged the race soldiers and said, y'all are a bunch of liars. It got international press. She had a lot of problems back home, but she was able to go overseas and kind of spread the word and everything. So she was like the first investigative journalist, man. She would be going into the Jim Crow South in places, you know, that most of the time, if you a black person doing her kind of work, you probably not gonna come back alive. But what she did is she went and brought a pipe with her, and you know she was gonna use it if she had to. So, most of the lynchings that occurred after slavery, if you're a plantation owner, you own slaves, there's no incentive for you to kill your slaves. You might whip them, you might beat them, but you're not going to lynch them. But after slavery was over, what they started to do is they started to say, well, hey, these Negroes aren't our Negroes anymore. So we have to, we know they built the country from scratch. We didn't really do the work. All the niggas did the work. But damn it, they're our cash crop, and they're not working for us anymore. So they started peonage. They started opening up prisons, and anything that they say that you're a criminal for, they just say, oh, well, that black man did a crime, or they'll just grab you and they put you on. And that was the American prison system. The American prison system wasn't the prison system to the degree it is now before until after slavery, because plantation was like a prison. It was like a forever prison that you'll forever, be mandated to do free labor. But now that you're not a quote unquote slave anymore, they had to create all these laws, the black codes. That's why I always bring up the 94 crime bill. The 94 crime bill was like one of the largest crime bills in America since like peonage, since slavery. They said, well, damn, man, these niggas ain't gonna work for us. They done messed it up. Mississippi's poor. It's no longer Queen Sugar, Louisiana, or King Cotton, Mississippi. We got to do something. Okay, let's create these laws. Okay, you can't vote. You can't own this. You can't sleep with a white woman. You can't touch a white woman. You can't do this. You got to cross the street when you see a nigga. You got to look down. They came up with all these ideas to try to subjugate blacks, because they figure, well, damn, they can't work for me for free. So let's put them on a prison. And if we can't keep them in the prison, let's just undermine them as much as we can. So they did everything they possibly could. And they're like, damn, these niggas is still building up Tulsa. Remember, Tulsa was one of the richest cities in America. It wasn't the richest black city. That's a misconception. That was one of the richest cities in America. So that burnt them up. They didn't really know what to do. They said, well, damn, they went down to Oklahoma and built a paradise. We got to get rid of that. So, I wanted to read an article here. We're gonna go through a couple audios. We'll breeze through this. There's an article here from the National Museum of African American History and Culture called The Historical Legacy of Juneteenth. And here, I'll send this to you so you can look at it too. But it's an article, and you see these very well-dressed black folks here in their Sunday's best on June 19, 1900, held in East Woods on East 24th Street in Austin. Now, when you think about Austin, Texas, you wouldn't really think about black folks. But looking at this picture, it was plenty of black folks in Austin, Texas. It's called Emancipation Day celebration on June 19th. Now here it says in this article, on Freedom's Eve, on the eve of January 1st, 1863, the first night watch services took place. On that night, enslaved and free African Americans gathered in churches and private homes all across the country awaiting news that the emancipation had taken effect. At the stroke of midnight, prayers were answered as all enslaved people in Confederate states were declared legally free. Now, let's keep in mind, and on a side note for my listeners, niggas was not free. They said they was, but you got to keep in mind, let's say you're a white man on a plantation. You don't want to let your slaves go. It was years, and actually there was people enslaved all the way to the 1970s in places in Louisiana. We'll talk about that later. But this wasn't like, for example, let's just say for one reason. Let's just on a side note, we'll get right back to it. Let's just say tomorrow they gave 20 million black folks here in the U.S., descendants of slaves, reparations. Everyone's not gonna get paid in one day. Stuff, it takes time. It's administrative stuff that everybody. Well, hold on. Let me draw back on that. They paid them Ukrainians quick as hell. But I'm just saying, it doesn't just happen in one day. So when they told when by the time we got the news that we were free, there was people that might have got the news months later, years later. They weren't able to just walk right off the plantation. They had built America. They were born into slavery. They probably was thinking like, well, damn, what am I going to do? What am I going to go? A lot of them had been wanted to leave. Like, oh shit, I done built America. We could build up our own shit. But it wasn't something that was just overnight. And another thing that they never told us in school is that, oh, well, they just Abraham just signed the pen and he just let us go. No. There was folks like Nat Turner, John Brown, Harriet Tubman. You had Denmark Visa. You had slave revolts all across the United States, especially down in Florida and the Seminoles. Them Seminole Maroons was whooping ass. The 1800 Indian Wars, they were really called Black Wars. But they didn't want America to know that they were fighting black folks. Black folks was kicking their ass down there bad. And they said, well, just call it an Indian War. So that's how they wrote it in the history books. That was actually a letter from one of the generals that said, hey, man, do not let the rest of America know that these Negroes down here is handing our ass to us. When you always told me about Tupelo, Mississippi, they was giving them race soldiers a Tupelo, Mississippi ass whooping. That's why slavery came down. Nobody... There was never, like you had told me, white folks are not going to give you justice. It was taken. They basically said, hey, look, we gonna turn up across America. It was pretty much a revolt across America in all kinds of plantations and places. And then after a while, they probably said, well, look, these Negroes ain't gonna get back in line. They done got a taste of revolution, you know. And so the Civil War was basically just to say, hey, look, New York got all the Negroes, Maryland, D.C., that's where all the black folks came in. New York was one of the biggest slave states in America. So they sold it to the South. And then after a while, the North tried to say, well, hey, this is wrong. And the South is like, nigga, you sold me these niggas. Okay, let's go to war. You know what I'm saying? Because the North, they had they had technology and in industrial, so you got to think when the North, yeah, they had slaves too, but the South, it was just 100% straight free labor. It was just 100%. So they said, well, look, yeah, we sold you these niggas, but we didn't think that y'all was going to get that rich. Y'all are messing up the economy for us. That's why Martin Luther King said the northern cities were even more vicious than a lot of the southern cities, because when black folks started leaving the South, they didn't leave the South just because they were, we're terrified. We're terrified in Mississippi. That's not why they left. They left because they wanted a bag. They're like, well, hell, I'm dealing with some race soldiers in the South, and there's a bunch of race soldiers that don't want us coming up to the North. It's white supremacists everywhere. But they're like, all right, well, I'll just go to California. I'm from Mississippi. I'll go to Chicago. I heard there's a lot of jobs going up there. If I'm going to be dealing with racism, I can work anywhere. So, they always try to tell, well, the South was so racist. It's so racist. That ain't the only reason why they left. They left because they're like, well, hell, man, they paying $5 more an hour up in Minnesota. So I'll just leave. Yeah, I'll deal with some race soldiers, but at least I'm getting paid. There wasn't no money in the South. The South was crumbling because you don't have no more free slaves. So that's one thing I wanted to get out the way, because what they'll try to say is, well, Abraham Lincoln was just trying to save the damn Union. It's like that analogy I used for you the other day. I said, look, you got two homeboys. You got one that got 1,000 workers, and then you got one that got 10,000 slaves. And then the one with 10,000 slaves, you ain't paying them no money, so you stacking all the bread, you messing up the economy. And then your homeboy tells you, Solomon, this nigga's messing up the economy. We got 1,000 workers up here up north, and we got 10,000 slaves that ain't getting paid. You need to do something. Now here you are, you're the president, you Abraham Lincoln. Now you really don't give a damn about no niggas. You definitely ain't trying to see them get no real equality. You don't want them to get the same equality as a white man. But you're like, all right, here's what I'm gonna do. Y'all gonna have to have a war. South got their ass kicked. They lost all their slaves. And, because remember, during Reconstruction, a lot of slave owners got reparations. That's a documented thing. They got reparations, bro. They got paid at $200 to $300 per slave or something like that. That might have been $10,000 now or something. So the South got, Reconstruction was reparations for race soldiers. That's what the Reconstruction was. We're rebuilding the South. We're restructuring white supremacy. And now we're just going to shake hands. This wasn't some kind of thing where the North and the South hate each other so much, and just like how they use the Democrats and I hate Nancy Pelosi, she's the man. They don't, man, when they get behind doors, these folks be like, all right, how we gonna deal with these niggas? Now, me and you, we look on TV like, oh, they got beef, and oh, it's Trump versus Trump. Man, them folks, when they get behind closed doors, just like the prosecutor and the judge and the public pretender, they be like, all right, how could we undermine this nigga's rights but don't make it look like we're really undermining him? How could we do some illegal shit legally? That's how they see it. So, going on, it says that the stroke of midnight prayers were answered as all enslaved people in Confederate states were declared legally free. Now, Confederate states, you got places like Missouri. That's kind of on the fence. Missouri is especially racist because I believe they were the last ones to let it go. Don't quote me on that, but I think they were one of the last people to let it go. They were kind of like half a slave state, half not. And you ever seen the movie 12 Years a Slave? It don't really, people say, well, New York is so liberal. And no, you could be a nigga that left the South and it'll be slave catchers that'll go up to New York and Philly and they'll bring your ass back to the South to put you on the plantation again. So there was really no place safe for a black person. Even out west, a lot of sundown towns in the 1900s. As you know, Oregon, Washington, those were major sundown states, not cities. The whole state was sundown in Oregon. Oregon is a race soldier haven, even to this day. So it says Union soldiers, many of them who were black, marched on the plantations and across cities in the South, reading small copies of the Emancipation Proclamation, spreading the news of freedom in Confederate states. Only through the 13th Amendment did emancipation end slavery to the United States. So people say, oh, it's Abraham. Well, it's still got to go through Congress. You see, the 13th Amendment, that's through Congress. Now, but not everyone in Confederate territory would immediately be set free. Even though the Emancipation Proclamation was effective in 1863, it could not be implemented in places still under Confederate control. So them folks was like, hey, we're just not gonna get rid of our niggas. Even when they were, told, hey man, you can't have these niggas on the plantation. You had a bunch of slave owners said, over my dead body, this is my cash crop. I ain't letting go of my niggas. I want to breed more. So they had no intention, on letting them go. As a result, in the westernmost Confederate state of Texas, enslaved people could not be free until much later. Finally, freedom came on June 19th, 1865, with some 2,000 Union troops arrived in Galveston Bay, Texas. Were free by executive decree. This day came to be known as Juneteenth by the newly freed people in Texas. The post-emancipation period known as Reconstruction from 1865 to 1877. So that's what? 65 to 77. That's 75, 20. That's about 12 years, marked an era of great hope, uncertainty, and struggle for the nation as a whole. So 10 years you had race soldiers from the North and the South trying to figure out a way to build back America to get Negroes back in control. Black folks were not really paying anything during that time. We were still getting our stuff together. Reconstruction was a time where they were trying to get their hands back on the plate. That's when the dominant society was saying, we still got to hold this white supremacy thing down. Formerly enslaved people immediately sought to reunify families, establish schools, run for political office. A lot of black folks don't know this. There was black folks in Congress. There was black folks in political office back then. Push radical legislation and even sue slaveholders for compensation. Given the 200 plus years of enslavement, such changes were nothing short of amazing. Not even a generation out of slavery, African Americans were inspired and empowered to transform their lives in their country. Juneteenth marks our country's second Independence Day. Although it has long been celebrated in the African American community, this monumental event remains largely unknown to most Americans. The historical legacy of Juneteenth shows the value of never giving up hope in uncertain times. So, before it was made a national holiday, black folks had been celebrating it, man, for 100 something years. This ain't nothing new. It was just another day that they could just give folks off, and then it's pretty much like a butter biscuit. Well, hell, vote for me. We'll give you this little bullshit day. you know, the day off, it's not. It's pretty much for everybody else. You know, it's like crumbs. But one thing I want to do, I want to play some audio.
What happens is that.
You still there?
Hold on, I ended up talking. Hold on.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I found some audio here. Now this, you know, I'm not a fan of The View, but this is. They had Taraji P. Henson. She released a new book, and I noticed something that she said. Here. So they got her, okay, they got her coming out. Let me turn up the volume. Okay,
yeah, she really does.
Yeah. She's been canonized.
Well, it is a man.
okay, what's this here?
That's the Pope's aura about
Yeah,
her.
she really does.
She's been canonized.
Well, it is a man. People keep saying, you got a new man? I say, yeah, the Pope. That's who I was with all weekend.
Yeah.
But, Sonny.
Oh, I have the first question.
You got the first question.
Sorry.
Yes, no worries.
Now, happy Juneteenth.
Yes.
What does this holiday mean to you? Why do you think it's so important to celebrate it? Because it's a federal holiday now, but we haven't been celebrating it across the country for a long time. People have been celebrating.
It's the day that slavery ended.
Yeah.
Right. Just in case.
I get it.
There's some white people out there.
Now, you just pause this for a second. Remember what I said before. It did not end that during that time. That was just the memo letting them know, well, we got to let you niggas go. But they had no intention on letting us go. And you notice they didn't say that. They didn't say that. See, you got places like The View. A lot of them, they're pretty much puppets for the Democrats. Hey, Negroes, you better vote, or the big boogeyman's coming in and stuff. I'm playing this for a reason, but I'm not playing this as a fan. I just want to be very clear about that. But you notice they did not. Whoopi didn't say nothing. The other two, Taraji, she's up there, she's the guest. But the other lady, Sunny, she didn't clarify that. Now we'll go on and we'll go to the next video in a minute.
Yeah, that the last slaves found out.
There's some black people that don't know either. But listen, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna say it once.
Last slaves found out.
There's some black people that don't know either. But listen.
Now, when she was saying some black people that don't know either, from what I got from that, she was talking about coons. To my knowledge, I haven't heard this whole thing, but she was talking about, because you still got some Negroes out there that don't know. Not saying that they don't know at all, but you got someone saying, oh, well, we shouldn't have this day and all that. So those are the signposts that she's really talking about. So I'll let her keep going.
I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna say it once.
Yeah.
We better start celebrating.
Yeah.
Because there is an agenda that's trying to take it.
That's right.
Now, what she's talking about there, she didn't specify what yet, but what I got from that is she was talking about like the Ron DeSantis and a lot of the race soldiers from the GOP and the Dems, they're complicit too, but mainly the race soldiers from the GOP, like down in Florida. You've been down to Florida, you know, to get down, where they're kind of like, well, what they're basically trying to say is, well, black folks were immigrants. Black folks, you guys just came over here on a boat just to work and earn a fair wage. That's the new narrative that what they're trying to do. They're trying to basically strip black American history off of the feet of America. They're just basically trying to say, hey, it didn't happen. Because if you say that it didn't happen, well, I don't owe you. Still there?
Yep.
Yeah. If it didn't happen, if somebody walks up to you tomorrow and they hit you in the face, and then you're like, well, yeah, I'm suing you for $100,000, and then he says, $100,000? $100,000 for what? Well, you hit me in the face. No, I didn't. And you're like, no, I got you on camera. Erase the camera. It didn't happen. There's no compensative justice or any history of anything you did to me. So if I could prove that you didn't do anything to me, or if I could rig it up to where, I could issue propaganda and just lie and make the lie the truth, you don't really have no claim.
Yeah,
So it
you got
means
no,
more now
you got no
than it's
witnesses.
ever.
Yep, no witnesses.
No
Or,
paperwork.
no paperwork. Or if you tell the witnesses, hey man, let me slide that nigga $100. And then the witnesses get on the stand and be like, hey, did you hit Solomon? Did you take his jacket? No, I ain't see that. No.
Like, I messed up a bum over here about 2 weeks ago. And then he must have been native because somebody from the native health board called the office. Like some kind of advocate or something. And like I told the manager, I said, hey, did he go to the hospital? He said, no. I said, did he file a police report? He said, no. I said, then it never happened. And the nigga said, you know what he said? It was exactly what he's talking about. Hey, if they didn't go to the doctor, there ain't no police report. That never happened. I don't know what you're talking about. I never touched them.
Well, what was that movie? I don't remember what movie that was. I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about, but I don't remember what it was. But it was something I seen. I don't know if it was Law and Order or something. This guy, he did something. I can't remember what it was, but there was some crime. And the prosecutor was mad. He got off. The prosecutor said, I guess he told him, he said, oh, you're a piece of shit. You a bad dude, or you wrong. You doing this. And he looked at the prosecutor in his face and said, you know what? That might be true. It ain't about what he said. It ain't about what I did, or what you think I did, or what you said I did. He said it's about what you could prove. He said, I know I did it. You know I did it. Jury said I didn't. He said the jury said I didn't. And that's kind of how race soldiers operate. They operate under that. They're able to get off with a lot of crimes and things of that nature that black people can't, because they could say, well, it didn't happen. They even with the evidence, or sometimes they had juries. You got to keep in mind, like during this time, and I always talk about the Dred Scott decision. I always talk about that happened here in Wisconsin territory. That happened here up in Minnesota, Fort Snelling, where, the Supreme Court basically just told a nigga, hey, we have, a black man has no rights, is bound for a white man to respect. You're not human. You're not fully a man. You're 3/5 of a man. You're property. So, now you imagine you sitting in court, you telling somebody that, and it's a human being you talking to, and they know damn well you're a human. But that was the whole little game they played. Well, you're not human. You're property. Yeah, you could speak, but you're not white. Therefore, you have no rights. That's the only reason why you don't have rights, is because you're black. That's the only reason. They would tell them that's what the Supreme Court ruled. That was the Dred Scott decision. It was a landmark case, because it basically set precedent. So now, if you're a black man and you're in another state and you're like, look, hey man, I'm tired of picking cotton. I don't want to work here no more. And then you say, well, I'm going to leave the plantation. I'm going up to Philly. You go up into a court in Philly or Minnesota or anywhere, and then you actually go to court. They'll let you step into court. That Dred Scott took his master to court. You know what I'm saying? But they look at you and tell you, yeah, you can bring him to court, but you ain't going to win. You're black. Well, the law says right here that, as long as I make it up north, I'm free. They'll probably agree with you. Yeah, that's what the law says. But I'm white and I say so. I say, you're black. You don't have any rights. That's what I say. And they slam the mallet. You know what I'm saying? So that's another reason why slavery came down. Stuff like that. Because black folks across America was like, you know what? Nah, ain't taking this no more. I'm good. See, they sell this snake oil skin salesman story about, well, it was a bunch of good white abolitionists. A lot of them were scamming too. A lot of them white abolitionists, man, believe it or not, what they would do is they'd go down to the South and try to convince the other white people, oh, this is wrong and all that. Put it like this. A lot of white abolitionists were Black Lives Matter. Now, my listeners are like, well, damn, DP, why would you say that about Black Lives Matter? The white abolitionists would basically just go and get a bag. Yeah, oh, this is so horrible. This is terrible what you're doing to use black people. You got them picking cotton, you're raping them, you're making these black Americans, you're making these black slaves sleep with their own siblings, and you're doing all this. You're promoting incest, and you're doing, you know, because that's what they used to do. Oh, this is so horrible. And they would tell the white people, oh, you're bad, you're so bad. And then they get back up north and stuff and have a fundraiser and get $100,000. Just like the 3 lesbian chicks for Black Lives Matter. You know, they would use this so-called abolition, this so-called grassroots. It'd be what I call corporate grassroots. You know, they'll get a cause going, rally up a bunch of people. You know, I mean, they might go get someone like Sojourner Truth or Frederick Douglass that may not have known about it or whatever the case may be. And then you'll get somebody credible. You'll get somebody from the streets. You'll get somebody that has street credibility. The same thing that Black Lives Matter will do. They might get somebody. Then once they find out what's going on, the gig is up. They done already made a bunch of money. And, you know, by the time Frederick Douglass or whoever, you know, finds out about it, they like, damn, man, these folks was really scamming. They done use Frederick Douglass or Sojourner Truth or whoever they got. They done use them and say, oh, well, you know, and then before you know it, now you got some nigga in a dress and they start talking about trans lives matter. You're like, whoa, what the hell does this got to do with Mike Brown and Trayvon? So that's what a lot of the white abolitionists were doing, man. They were doing stuff like that. But let me play this video. Let me see what else he's saying.
Never met before, because we got to show up and fight for it.
Yes.
So that we can keep it very serious.
Exactly.
What we're up against. It keeps me up at night.
Now, what I got from that, and I'll go to another video elsewhere, but what I got from that was, you know, gatekeeping our culture. Foundational black American culture under attack. They don't really do this to anybody else. They don't, see, as I was talking to you earlier this week, I said, race soldiers in America have a special relationship with the black American Negro. They look at us like property, like, wait a minute, y'all niggas wasn't supposed to get off the plantation. We can't deport you. We can't send you anywhere. What are we going to do with you Negroes? You keep on creating music and style and everyone emulates you around the world. What the hell are we going to do with you? Okay, let's pass a crime bill. Damn, the crime bill didn't work. Okay, let's introduce crack cocaine. Let's see if that works. Oh, damn, that didn't work. Okay, let's destroy the Panthers. Let's take all your leaders. Let's get you involved in gang banging. Oh shit, you're still not. What are we gonna do with you Negroes? They have a special relationship with foundational blacks. So they're like, we can't deport them. We can't mass kill them in like Nazi Germany or something. What are we gonna do with these Negroes? We don't know what to do with them. So, you know, when they're like, okay, we can erase their history. Let's try that. Because if you erase a person's history, this person doesn't have nothing to fall back on. That's why when they kidnapped Africans and brought them to America, they said, we got to make a new Negro. Let's strip him of everything. So now you're 400 to 500 years down the line. You really don't know where you came from. You have 300 to 400 years of history right here that you could be proud of. But anything before that, yeah, we going to make sure you don't know nothing.
Well, but that's where life comes in, because earlier you said something about Africa is the slums or whatever. It is dirty. It is. It's the slums because, and you said Europe is upscale because Europeans, you and your listeners, go find the bummiest white person you know. I bet you he could tell you his ancestry. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's not a knock on blacks because they don't have the access to it. But when you look at Europe, Western Europe, it's influenced by America. I was just talking to someone the other day. I said, if you go to Western Europe, Scotland, these kind of places, you're not in a third world country. You know what I mean? You're not like, you're on vacation for real. You're not struggling or anything like that. You know, you're basically in America.
Right.
What happened with foundationals had access to that history. They would know their roots. So a place like Kenya, Zimbabwe, where a lot of African Americans' ancestry came from Western Africa.
Right.
Those are the bigger African people. You know, bigger boned. You know what I mean? They came from that part of Africa. But guess what would happen in Congo and them countries? It'd be tricked out. It'd be franked if blacks had access to their history, because they'd go square it up because they want to go there.
Oh yeah, if they knew, put it like this. And see, here's what happens too. This is what I think. Africa's in the shape it's in because of tribalism, and mainly race soldiers indirectly. Now most people, like I remember I had an African dude tell me, he was from West Africa. He says, "Oh, you niggas against gangbanging, you lazy, and you have baby mamas." And I pulled up some stats in West Africa. I'm like, nigga, you want to talk about scamming? Do we want to go there? So he says, I'm not sure. I don't know if he was from Nigeria, but he just came in real late. He might have been like, I don't know where he was from, but he went in there. He was just going at me, you know. Basically, he was on my team for an IT project at work and stuff, and he was just going in. He was really cooning to get brownie points because he was trying to get his visa going. So he was cooning real hard at work, and so, oh yeah, the African Americans lazy, you gangbang and all this. I said, man, do you know that we're 30 to 40 million of the population? It's probably about 1% to 2% of criminal activity within Black Americans. I said, you telling me? I said, you trying to tell me that 30 million of us gangbang? I said, how the fuck will we build this damn country? And you know what I'm saying? How we create hip hop and create all this shit if we was out here gangbanging? We didn't. I said that shit started in like the late 70s, got popular heavily in the 80s. I said, you niggas over there with machetes chopping each other up. He says, oh, it's different. You still lazy. Oh, you have baby mamas. And he was just going in. And I said, okay, this nigga don't watch too much TV. So I said, look, man. I said, how is it that you over here? Oh, it's war, it's tribal war. I said, so what's the difference? I said, ain't it worse? I said, yeah, we might have some gangbanging going on over here. I said, but we ain't doing what y'all niggas is doing over there to each other. I said, y'all are 90% of the population and y'all done let these white folks take over. He said, oh, well, ain't no white people. It's an African dictator. I said, that's my point. I said, he was probably installed by some race soldiers in Europe. He told me they wouldn't do that. I said, you really believe that? I said, you telling me that the race soldiers have nothing to do with the condition of your country and how it's been in there? Oh no, it's good white people. They wouldn't do that. They sent me over here and they get me a good job. They wouldn't do that. I said, oh man, this nigga's brainwashed. I said, okay, I can't help him. So they indirectly control Africa and install dictators. But whenever people bring that up, they say, hey, go talk to the African dictator. He's the one doing that. And the white folks will be like, hey, we didn't have nothing to do with that. Yes, they did. When you look at the Congo, when you look at the blood diamonds in the mines and stuff, they're the ones collecting all the money. And then when I was trying to get dude to understand it, I said the conditions of Africa is indirectly from the race soldiers. I said here it's direct. I said we can't really hide from it because we know the history here in America. We're not able to really walk down the street as a black person and say, oh, the Klan wasn't around or it's indirect. No, we know there's a direct. That's why a lot of...
You're only talking about whites. You have to understand the thing with Africa is when it comes to war and when it comes to beef, it's very rarely with another African country. It's always internal. So if you're dealing on a daily basis, well, your ops is some motherfuckers across the street from you, up the block from you, a whole other tribe from you. You're already conditioned to know about war and pain. But it's impossible for a person in rural Africa that lives in communism to have any understanding of what slavery is. What's the concept of it? They don't know. Africa, you're not picking up a phone, a computer, Googling anything. You're dealing with suppression within your own country.
So they
Whatever
don't believe.
the dominant tribe.
So they don't believe that a white person had anything to do with that. Is what you're saying?
They can't. They're going to look at the president. He has something to do with it. You see what I'm saying? So they're to go back in history. They have no way of doing that unless somebody old is alive and can tell them. Africa, the average person in Africa lives in communism and has no direct idea of what's going on in their own country. So the curriculum for most African schools is the Old English. So if you thought in 1994, when me and you were in Mr. Pastar's, whatever class that was, civics, or I don't know what the fuck it was.
Right.
When we were in that class and we were watching Roots, that's what, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years behind the curriculum that's the Old English that they're learning in Africa. So the last thing they're going to do is, okay, in America, we might be forced to talk about slavery. I'm talking in the minds of a white man. In America school, I have to be forced to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it in a way where you're looking at the Europeans, the actual Europeans. That ain't us. But when they teach the curriculum to the Africans, they can give it all the filter they want. I will promise you, you can find the most educated African person you know. Find him. Whatever he knows about world history or slavery specifically, he learned on his own through osmosis. So then, now, these people escape a communist country where they're all forced to go into war at 18. They escape to a refugee camp. Now they're at the refugee camp until they get sponsored to come to America by who? The white man, specifically the Lutheran Church.
Yep, that's what he said. He said the Lutheran Church.
This is a Christian church that's bringing Muslims to America. But when you sponsor somebody, you don't get paid from that individual. You get paid by that individual prospering. That's how you get money to sponsor somebody, then you bring more. Because when you try to sponsor 5 or 6 other people, they're going to see what you just did. Well, how are these people that you brought here adjusting? So what happens now? Now that white man that brought you to America, to the African, he has an onus to get you a halfway decent job, get you a halfway decent crib. So through osmosis, so now the African comes to America. Wait a minute. This sponsor is like a bail bondsman. He can revoke that at any time within 5 years. See, these are all things that people don't talk about. So what happens now? Now that white man's got a whole lot of leverage, influence on a foreigner that he can mold.
Forced coonery.
Yeah, so it's not even forced coonery. It's even a more direct term. I don't even know what the term is for it. Brainwashing. So then now what happens? Now, through this immigrant, I didn't got you a job. I got you a car. I got you a place to stay. You got a few dollars in your pocket. You're able to help your family out in Africa. What's the next step I'm going to tell you when I'm trying to divide and conquer? Look at these Negroes selling drugs on the corner. Look at you. So through osmosis, you're not knowing, you don't know the lineage and the history. You just know, wait a minute, I'm coming over here and I'm doing something. Them motherfuckers from America and he ain't on shit. But the Lutheran Church, the people that sponsor you, they're not telling you, hey, these black Americans have been suppressed from the beginning of time. Africans can understand being suppressed in your own country better than anybody once they figure it out.
I had a woman. Go ahead.
Hold on. So the term is not really. So when I got this organization building, called Bridging the Gap.
Right.
I'm trying to get foundationals like yourself to start sponsoring people to bring them to America. So then that filter that I just explained to you about the white man from the Lutheran Church, the white woman from the Lutheran Church, how they're gaming it, you could do the opposite. You say, hey, brother, I brought you to America. I got an influence over you 4 or 5 people for at least 5 years. I got influence on you. I don't have to a lot of people can't even read or write. So maybe you can say, you know what, within this 5 years, I'm going to teach these 4 or 5 people what really is going down. Why you're here, how you got here, who put up what to get you here. Because unless that's explained to an African clearly, they're not going to know until they come to America and piece it together. If DP went to Eritrea, a country that I know of very well, if you had to move there right now, it's not, how hard would it be for DP to come there and understand the politics amongst all these people?
It would take me years.
It would take you years just to be like, wait a minute, these people are from the same country. How come they're beefing? But in turn, you're not giving the immigrant that same luxury when they come here. But when they come here, they have to know everything right away. Look at how hard I painted that scenario for you. I send you to Eritrea. You got to worry about a job, where the fuck you going to stay, how the fuck you going to eat, right? Those are going to be your 3 most important things, right? You, your family, how y'all going to eat, how y'all going to make it in this world. Now, on top of that, I need you to learn the politics of this country. And if you don't know it, we're going to all look at you as a coon. What would you tell me? You'd say, wait a minute, let me get my footing here before I see what's going on here and who's being squeezed and who ain't. It's not something you're going to know tomorrow.
Right.
So when I see foundationals that complain about the mindset of immigrants, I totally understand it. I can give you a real perspective on that. I'm a son of immigrants who grew up around foundationals and never, ever, I think you've known me my whole life. I never told anybody I'm not Eritrean. I never said that, but I never had a difference between who I am and a black person.
Well, right. Yeah, right. Because see, like, okay, for example, remember when we were talking about like the Stephen A. Smiths and the, you know, a lot of these guys from some of these islands, some of these places or something, they sound like us, they look like us. That's the tether class. And you were like, well, they're not coons. I'm like, they're immigrant coons. They just, we call them tethers. A tether is just a person that's a black person not from America that's cooning. So basically they
an immigrant that doesn't understand the plight of the black man.
Oh no.
Talking about
I'm talking about, see, Stephen A. or somebody like that, or I'm trying to think of some other. There's a lot of members from like the Congressional Black Caucus. A lot of them, you would think they're foundational. Some of them are not. Now remember what I said. They look like us. They sound like us. They talk like us. They might listen to the same music. But deep down inside, they're almost like a double agent. Sometimes you can't even tell until when you start hearing some of the stuff they say. You be like, damn, why this nigga cooning so hard? And you find out where he's from. He speaks against the interests of foundationals, but he looks and sounds just like us. You be like, damn, this nigga, he sound like me. He might be the dialect. But when you hear him start talking, oh, these niggas don't need no reparations, or when he starts kind of talking like the race soldiers and kissing too much ass, you like, whoa, wait a minute. Where's your people from, bro? And he's like, oh, man, I'm from New York. Nah, where's your people from? Oh, they from the Caribbean. Oh, so you don't come from this lineage. That's why you talking so slick about it, and you don't want us to get reparations to get what's due, because you have a hidden agenda. But a lot of those folks are hired in positions, or they get big political positions. So, yeah, that's an immigrant coon. Yeah, he was born here. But if he's talking like that, now remember, he might use the same slang. He might have the same dialect. You might even get a dude with a little bit of a southern drawl, and you'll be like, wait a minute, he sound like he grew up with grandma and them. No, he didn't. He might have grew up around some black folks, but when he goes back home and he talks to his mom and dad, a lot of them still have that immigrant coon spirit. They're like, okay, hang around them niggas, but just, nah, you know what I'm saying? So those are the most dangerous, because you can't really, he ain't got no accent. For example, I'll give you a prime example. I was always a big fan of this brother. Always want to see him do well. Akon. For the last couple of years, he's been saying a lot of real slick shit about foundational blacks. Talking about our stage presence and, oh, we don't know our history and this, that, and the third. And I kind of thought about, I was listening to this Nigerian cat, and he was talking about how, like, there was some, some folks, not the rioters, not the real niggas, but it was some folks online that was basically trying to say, well, black Americans ain't got no history. We don't have no culture. We don't know our history. We know 300 to 400 years now. Yeah, genetically, our ancestors are African, but our heritage is here. So, yeah, we may not know maybe our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. We may not know that, but we know till maybe the 1800s. I got a book about it all the way from like the 1700s.
Well,
so
when you say we, but when you say we, you really mean you.
Me,
And you,
but what I'm saying, bro, we can trace our stuff back to the 1800s. That
every DP. Let's be real about it. Let's be real about it. Let's call a spade a spade. You look at every race in America, in the world, from Hispanics to all that. The young African American is the one that has the least knowledge when it comes to his history.
Not the last 300 years. We know about that, bro. We could trace a lot of that.
Yeah, but when you say we, you mean you. And you is representative of the foundational black man that has a lot of sense.
You'd be surprised, bro, to see you go to the average black American home, some of these pictures and some of these transcripts and things of that nature you could find. Now, there might be some nuances like where you're like, okay, if this person came from this plantation, it might have been a name change or something like that. But, bro, we got pictures from hundreds of years, bro. We have something that could trace us back to where we could at least say we came from this plantation. You got some folks that don't know nothing at all. Like,
so you're telling me the average black man across the street, he'll tell me where his family's plantation was?
Hell yeah. That's not hard to find out, bro. You can find that on census.com. It's not hard to find out.
I'm not saying you can or can't.
You're saying will they?
Well, I don't know, man. I'll just probably leave that one alone.
Are you? Well, some people don't. Now, so you got some folks that just don't care. They don't even want to know. Some folks would be like, whatever. It happened a couple hundred years ago. What's it made of me? To me, it means something because, I think you need to know as much history as you can. Now,
should be forced. But guess what? No black schools. So if you think there's all black schools, what would happen when they bring up segregation and all this? And why segregation robbed the African American man or woman of really going to school and learning out his history for real. Well, there's a difference between if you look at even the Somali race, who would be doing a lot of fucking underhanded nonsense around Minnesota. But guess what they got? They got some schools.
That's true. Now,
that's what fucked me up. Guess what Indians got? They got schools.
Well, during segregation, let me talk about that. During segregation, what segregation happened, well, here's the thing about segregation, bro. They made it seem like it was such a bad thing. Now, let me get deep on that. We were segregated financially. It wasn't black folks that basically said, well, we don't want to live around y'all folks or whatever. The segregation, we were always integrated. We just wasn't integrated financially. When we was on the plantation, they had no problem with it. But now that we can't work for free, oh, y'all niggas go over there. You can't work here. You can't do this. You can't vote. You can't do that. So this now, even under that, those 30 to 60 plus years of segregation, black folks had no problem of, okay, yeah, we'll teach our own people. But whenever it came to, we paid the same taxes as the race soldiers paid. So we're like, okay, we getting these janky books from the state and this, that, and the third. So the complaint that black folks had with the segregation is you're economically castrating us out of this American dream that we built. And you're telling us that, well, Billy Bob over here, he didn't earn anything and I did everything. So I get the old books. I don't get any taxation representation. You're telling me I can't vote. I can't own property if I don't vote. So you're telling me all these things and you're basically keeping me out of the so-called white American dream. And I done did everything to build the dream you have. When we were in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we were in all these different places, not just Tulsa, You had places up here. You had places in Florida. You had, especially North Carolina. You had all Mississippi. Oklahoma has the most black towns in the union. You had all these places where black folks had to pack up and leave, and they built everything overnight and had it popping. Yeah, we were segregated because we had to. We didn't have a choice because they said, well, we don't want y'all niggas around. We're like, all right, well, look, we'll just build Tulsa. So
well, I don't think you understand what I meant. What I meant was this. Okay, prior to segregation,
right?
Who taught black kids in school?
Well, prior to segregation, we probably was on a plantation, so we probably had to sneak to learn how to read and stuff.
Well, there's a time period in America where slavery ended and segregation was still allowed, where blacks couldn't go to school, whites.
So you're talking about the early 1900s all the way to the 60s. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, when segregation ended.
Segregation ended in the late 1960s, 70s, the early 1960s.
Prior to that point in time.
Yeah.
How would you describe the education the black man and black woman got? Who taught them?
A lot of it was self-taught, and like I said,
hold on. African American black kids was going to school then, right? Who was teaching them at that school? What school were they going to prior to segregation?
Prior to segregation. You're saying
prior to the end of segregation, how did the black man and woman go to school? Who was their teachers? What kind of school?
You had black teachers. You had folks like John Henry Clark, John Henry Clark came a little bit later, but you had folks like J.A. Rogers. We had some major scholars. Now, they weren't as robust as, the information wasn't robust as it is now.
Hold on. I don't want you to get too far off topic now. Okay, so there were teachers like that, brilliant African Americans or brilliant blacks, foundationals that would teach what? Their own.
Right. The
real deal, the real history. So when segregation ended, the black man and the black woman went to the white man for their history. History.
Yes.
So when I say that's the part that hurt the African or the foundational blacks when it comes to segregation, because now where are you getting your information? Not just that teacher. Because if anybody's smart enough to know, a teacher doesn't just start spewing off at the mouth. A teacher has something called a curriculum.
Right.
That they follow. And that curriculum subliminally says, let's not tell fucking foundationals, let's not tell our own people, let's not tell on us when it comes to anything. So we're going to tiptoe around the subject when it comes to slavery. We're going to tiptoe around it until we can just get away from it. It's like, you walking in a line and everybody's punching you in football practice when you run. And then you just get to the end and you're lucky. You're happy it's over. That's what they're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
That's what they're dealing with right now. You know what I mean?
That's true.
And then you got Biden, who I'm just reading, got 50 or half a million immigrants that just came in under the Biden watch.
Oh, man.
Now, I showed you the clip of 500,000. I showed you the clip of the foundational lady going off.
Let's play it.
Chicago, right?
Let me
play. You know what the Democratic Party, if they didn't care about public relations, you know what they'd say? You guys, foundationals, are threatening to not vote for us anymore. And if you guys stop voting for us, we're going to lose. So here's what we're going to do. They probably went through their curriculum and said, you know what? Maybe 10% of blacks in America are going to switch their vote, something like that. We need to make that difference. You know what I'm saying? We got to make that difference up. So there is, according to Google, there's of 2022, there was 41 million so-called foundationals. I don't know how they determine that, but they say there's 42 million. So what's 10% of 42 million? Say that rose up to 50.
Okay.
50 million. What's 10% DP of 50 million?
5 million, I think, or something like that. 10% of 50 million?
Yeah.
I think it's 5 million. I don't think it's 10 million.
Half a billion? Half a million?
Half a million? Maybe about that.
Okay, that's the votes. So if you remember 4 years ago when the Dems won, they barely won, right?
Right.
And they had this thing where people can retroactive their votes. So when they sign up, when they go to these homeless camps, and you see these white folks giving out food, and then but somebody's sitting there and they're filling out paperwork, they're retroactively filing their votes, and that person's telling them, you got to vote for this, this, and this if you want this to continue, what we're giving you.
I want your analysis on this. I want to play this. I think you showed me this clip. All right, here it goes.
Election time, I would not knock on doors for you or pass out your literature because you have not did a good job as the mayor, because you have let us citizens down as citizens. You did not, the teachers are asking for money. Why not give them the money when you gave it to the immigrants? You took away the Section 8 and you gave it to them. Now you want to build every building you want that's down. You want to rebuild it to give them housing when we have over 65,000 homeless people here already in the city of Chicago.
Wow.
So it's not that you can't help your people here. You're not helping them here. And my thing is, you put them in all the impoverished community, but they cannot vote when you remember that. They cannot vote for you. They cannot vote. Give us our 40 acres and our mule because we paid the price for us to be here. They should not come here and get what we already worked for.
That's sad.
My thing is, I thought you was the HNIC in this house, but you don't act like it. I'm just going to put it out there for you because you're not doing right for the people of Chicago. You have let us down. You selling all our buildings for profit. What's going to happen? They great-grandkids going to have the money to come in. They already come election time. I wouldn't.
All right. Now, she said something, they won't vote, and I heard somebody say they working on it in the background, and you just talked about that.
It's 100%, 1 million, bazillion, trillion. There's not very many things in life I am more certain about than that. The reason they brought them there is to make up the gap and the difference from the foundational vote they know they're going to lose.
That's a devious, smart plan.
And you have to tack in the fact that retroactive voting, because of COVID, is over. They snuck COVID in. Is the reason that we can call you and you can vote. We can come to the homeless center and you can vote. That's over with now. You got to go back to the polls. So the Dems, they got to talking. Wait a minute, what the fuck we gonna do? We just gonna take an L? Nah, here's what we gonna do. We got to create our own voters. It's like if you owned a store and nobody went in there. You did own a store at one time.
Yeah.
Say you own that store and absolutely nobody will go in there. What would you do? How am I gonna get people to come in here?
I'm gonna start marketing, but if nobody ever comes in, I'd have to close.
Exactly. And guess what? America ain't gonna do it. So look at you closing as the Democratic Party. They know if they lose this election in November, it's gonna be a long time before they get back in office.
Right. Yeah.
It's not gonna be overnight because Donald Trump, I'm pretty sure for his vice president, is gonna pick somebody now that can talk, that runs his mouth on that bullshit just like him. Pence turned on him in the end, you know. So you're gonna find someone like DeSantis or somebody that'll talk that talk that he can just pass the baton to when he's done.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a while.
Pence didn't really. I don't know what happened to him. I ain't seen that dude in years.
When Trump told Pence they fucked us out this election, I need you to go, and when you go in front of Congress and talk about it, I need you to say that this is bullshit. He said, hey, man, I'm an American, and I respect the outcome. I respected Pence for that, even though he's a racist. But he said, hey, basically he said, you lost. Fuck it.
Oh, damn. So yeah, until Donald was mad about that. He felt like you ain't loyal.
The sun, bro. You call that man every name under the sun. He said, you a lying ass, sorry, sell out, get out of here. Call him a snitch, basically. I didn't have to pick you I could have picked anybody. I could have picked Bon Jovi or some rock star motherfucker. I picked your dumb ass and you gonna do this, whole ass nigga?
And see, and Pence probably had that governor pension. You know, Pence was the governor of Indiana. You know that?
Pence is over card carrying race soldier, man.
Card carrying, man. Pence, let me tell you, Pence. See, a lot of people don't know about the Klan in Indiana.
The birth of the Klan.
The birth of the Klan is in Indiana. A lot of people don't know that. They think, oh, it was the South. No. That Indiana, man. And let me tell you something about Indiana. Indiana had race soldiers. They had pretty much, I think they said over 70% of the population in Indiana were Klan or linked up with the Klan. So I'm telling you a black person in Indiana during that time, the resurgence of the Klan, you really didn't have nothing coming for you down there in Indiana. They could judges, police. I mean, everybody was plugged in. Put it like this: the Indiana Klan. Okay, you know how we talked about, like, imagine South Central LA Bloods and Crips times 70. But the whole state, not just the city, not just South Central LA, just imagine a whole damn state. If you bought a burger or if you bought gasoline, you probably had to go through them.
Yeah, and then they're not separated in Chicago and in Indiana, in the Midwest. It's not really sectioned off by your neighborhood. So, like, this one kid from Chicago was telling me that was working with me this weekend. He said BDs and GDs can be neighbors.
Yeah.
It's not like, in LA. You already know your op is on the unit 60s. He's in the 20s. He ain't close to you. You know what I mean? But in Chicago, your op could be your neighbor.
Yeah, the next block.
By areas that much, but you never hear nothing about the wild hunters anymore.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about. I'll give a little story because we might go ahead and segue into this. We'll come back into the Juneteenth and the foundational stuff. In my experience, it was a little overwhelming when I went, man. I'm telling you, because it was so big. And when you hear the headlines, and like when the race soldiers always talk, oh shit, Chicago and blacks in Chicago is violent. You just kind of listening and be like, oh, they just saying it. And then when you actually go there, you know how sometimes you hear where they say, well, it was all these shootings and all that. You're like, well, they probably just bigging it up. Then when you get there and see the size of the city, you kind of look and be like, damn, maybe some of this stuff could be going on left and right. Because you're looking at when you come in, when you hit the airport ain't like how our airport is. I don't know. It can seem like their airport is just way out the way. And you get down, they got two airports, bro. You know how we got Humphrey and Lindbergh, and it's like within blocks of each other, or within, you get off one exit and another. No, they got one called Midtown, or I think Midway Airport. Now, I've heard race soldiers I worked with where they said, oh, I don't like getting off on the Midway. And I said, why? He said, oh, it's kind of a rough neighborhood. Now, when they mean rough, they mean black. That's what they mean. They mean black. They mean, oh, it's a bunch of blacks and it's probably a bunch of crime. And Midway is over south. The Humphrey, or not Humphrey, what's that? O'Hare is kind of over on the west side. So if I go to Chicago, I'm going to take O'Hare because my wife's, the in-laws, they're out west. Now, when you meet somebody from Chicago, their sense of direction and their compass is different than, when we say, like, if you meet someone in Minneapolis, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to ask them what part you're in because it's just small. So you might say south or south side, or you say, but out there, they use the term out west, over south, or out west or out south. Or they'll say over east. They don't say out east. They say over east. So when you thinking about out south, you're probably thinking, well, oh, you just hopping on you just jumping in a car and it's relative. No, when they say out, they mean out. Like when I was west, to get out over south, it felt like you going out of town. That's how it feels. You're like, damn, how long is it gonna take? It really feels like it's kind of like traveling maybe from, okay, let's say you start at Stillwater and then you end up in Minnetonka and you're like, damn, I'm still not over there. That's how big it is, bro. So just because you're over south, just because you're out south, that don't mean you in the hundreds. You might be close to kind of downtown and a little over there. You might be kind of over there, like geographically. I showed you the map by like O Block, and then you're like, oh well, let's hit the Wild Hunters. It's a ways, bro. It's not like you could just jump on a bike. I mean, if you drove all the way from downtown Chicago to the Wild Hunters, nigga, that shit might take 2-3 hours or some shit. It just takes a long ass time. And number one, you're not gonna want to go through there anyway. It's too much traffic for one. Number two, like I say, on a bike, it's gonna be forever. It's gonna be forever, and you're not gonna want to ride a bike all the way through there anyway. It's easier to take the shuttle or the train or drive. So my aunt stays in the hundreds. When I was driving over south, I talked to my in-laws. I always talked about this story all the time. I said, hey, we about to go over south. He said, oh man, I'm good. And I was wondering, why did they want to go over there? People that's from the West, from what I've heard from them, they don't really like going out there. You know, everything that they need is out West. They don't like going over there. If they don't have family or something, it's like night and day. They don't have a reason to go over there. They don't want to go over there. They don't like being over there. They don't think they're not comfortable being over there. So he told me I'm on my own. You know, like, I ain't really trying to go over there. He just had no interest of going over there. And so my aunt, I told her, I said, well, you know, I'm on my way. And she said, what kind of plates you got? She said, you got Minnesota plates? I said, no. She said, good. I said, what kind of plates you got? And I said, they're Michigan. She said, okay, it be Detroit niggas coming over here from time to time. Are you okay? She said, don't come over here with no Minnesota plates. Because, you know, when you're from out of town, if you catch the right person that's on the road and they see an out of town plate, sometimes they'll target you. You know, because they know you're not from there. They know you probably don't know your way around. So she told me that specifically, you know, and she brought it up again when I got out the car. She said, let me look at your plates again. She wanted to see them. She said, okay, I just want to make sure you ain't got no Minnesota plates because, you know, they just, she just didn't want to make sure I'm okay. You know what I'm saying? And you talk about it just felt like forever. I said, man, it just felt like it took a long time. Like you're going all the way around the Dan Ryan and all this kind of stuff, man. And it's like Gotham City. It's humongous. It's humongous. So remember what I was telling you about? You still there?
Yep.
I was telling you about what crime. Well, the block that my grandma stays on, or my aunt stays on. When they say, well, there's no black communities in America. And I know Dr. Claude Anderson talked about that. Yeah, to a certain degree, yeah. Like when you're talking about, okay, does the money go around 3 to 5 times? Not really. It's a few places. Chicago still has what I say communities, quasi-communities. Everybody on her block, she's known for over 50 years. It's not like here where you don't know your neighbor. You literally don't know your neighbor like that. It's so many immigrants here and people from other places, you don't really know your neighbor like that. So there's really no cultural standing unless you live on a block. Like you got some people that might have lived over north for a long time, but Chicago still has neighborhoods where everybody knows each other. So you pulling up, oh, I'm lost. They like, okay, who is this nigga? Who does he know over here? You see what I'm saying? People know everybody. So they're, okay, that's Miss Janice. Okay, that's so-and-so's cousin or whatever. You might say, you're coming to visit. So the neighborhood, if you pull up and they just see this random car, they might know, oh, well, that's cousin Francis' grandkids. They coming from Minnesota. So, you know, it's you know, that people know, they still have neighborhoods there. There's some places that still have neighborhoods that, you know, the news would tell you, well, it's just OK Corrals, the Wild Wild West, and that's simply not the case. But there's places in there that are known war zones. There's places that are known war zones, but like the guy said, your next neighbor might be something else, because it's not like how it was when the leaders had control over the streets or whatever the case may be. It ain't really no hierarchy far as somebody's telling somebody what to do. So, you might just have some fringe groups, renegades. You see what I'm saying? You might have this, you had this gang over here, you got that gang over, and it ain't even really, like he said, with the BDs and the GDs, you might have a GD, it might be 5 GDs and 1 BD. And they might be the Class B group and then the Class C group or something. And they don't give a damn if them niggas is GDs. They'll smoke them just like anything else. They don't really care. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like you could go, well, okay, who's the leader? Ain't no leader. The leaders are locked up and dead. You know what I'm saying? So there's no leader. Think of it. Think of it as, okay. You know how they got the RICO? You told me you were happy about the RICO. The RICO from last year, they've extended it to 10 more people here.
You talking about yesterday? Those kids didn't get a RICO.
It was some people that got a RICO. Hold on, let me type it up.
You talking about the page from yesterday? No.
The announcement. Okay, now right here. This
No
is
RICO.
no RICO?
Mm-hmm.
You sure?
He said that. Yep, positive. He said they had to get him off the street quick, and they didn't have time for a RICO because it takes time to build that up. He said that's something they might revisit at a later time, but right now we had to get them locked up.
All right, let's look at this here. I want to read the article. This is another...
Gang members are off the streets tonight as part of a violent crime. Local law enforcement says nearly a dozen alleged gang members are off the streets tonight as part of a violent crime crackdown in Minneapolis. Prosecutors today charged 10 people with federal gun and drug charges related to violent crimes throughout the city. As Reg Chapman reports, this is now the 4th street gang to face federal prosecution.
In the past 2 years, the joint federal, state, and local strategy to address unprecedented levels of violent crime in Minneapolis has led to federal charges for members of 3 Minneapolis street gangs. 70 gang members from the highs and lows in North Minneapolis and the Bloods in South Minneapolis have been charged federally. Now, U.S. Attorney Andy Lugar is charging members of a 4th Minneapolis street gang.
Today, we announced charges against 10 additional alleged gang members for their role in bringing violence and illicit drugs to our city.
Lugar says it was members of MPD's gang unit that brought the resurgence of the 10s and 20s to his attention. Working with the FBI, they were able to quickly identify members.
This group has been the focus of numerous prior investigations by law enforcement. Much of its membership have previously been convicted for federal offenses, and like previous takedowns, they are among some of the worst of the worst.
According to Minneapolis police, the 10s and 20s gangs operated in South Minneapolis, mainly in the Ventura Village neighborhood. Police say their alleged illegal activities took place inside PV Park, here near the intersection of Chicago and Franklin Avenues. Police say search warrants were executed and investigators confiscated cash, crack cocaine, fentanyl, and 13 guns, one equipped with an auto sear to make it fire like a fully automatic weapon. Lugar says these alleged gang members are not charged under RICO, or the Racketeer, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act.
The 10s and 20s gang members were seeking to reemerge in South Minneapolis after a period of...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the man said a RICO can take a couple years to build. And they had to get them guys off the street. They were dealing that fentanyl, and that cop got killed over there and got buried yesterday. So they had to show the people we did something.
So they hit him with the federal charges. Fed charges.
Yeah, but he also said we can revisit the RICO once we get to finding out more.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But right now,
they just need some rats.
We needed them in jail.
So after that cop got killed, you're saying that's when they really start saying, okay, we taking them.
The cop got killed in that neighborhood.
Oh, so that also brought heat. Like, okay, we got to get rid of these guys.
Not just we got to get rid of it. In the funeral, they flew his body to Connecticut, where he's from. So all the eyeballs are on Minnesota. Everybody already looks at Third Precinct like they're the dumbest motherfuckers in the world. Worst cops from probably compared to LAPD. So that was a PR move. Because the shooter and what that shooting was about had nothing to do with blacks.
Right. Yeah. Say that again. That has nothing to do with foundational blacks. Nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. That was a group of Somali people that were hooked on fentanyl.
Really?
Yeah. And they were running around with guns.
What kind of guns did he have? They said he had an automatic weapon or something.
He had an automatic weapon, and he killed 2 people. One of the victims he killed, his girlfriend called the police. So they show up on the scene. When they show up on the scene, the guy with the rifle is on the ground covering the rifle. So the police thinks he got shot. He goes up to him. The guy walks up and shoots him right in the head with a rifle.
What the hell, man? Wow.
So in that area over there, so you're talking Nicollet, I think, Franklin, Nicollet.
Franklin,
right
Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, Franklin, Chicago, right by the liquor store. There's a CVS pharmacy up there. There's a McDonald's up the block that's been there forever. There's a New York Pizza in that area. That area is a fentanyl zone, and it's the blacks over there that are doing and dealing fentanyl. I will say that, but that specific incident had nothing to do with black people. But there's a lot of African Americans from the Salvation Army that have to leave at a certain time and can't come back to a certain time, so they try to kill all their momentum and time, and they spend a lot of time over there. So they knew, the police basically knew, we have to make a big arrest. So who can we get? All right, there's some niggas over there from the 10s and 20s. They doing this and that. All right, let's go get them. Let's get them. Let's parade them. Let's have a parade, or let's have a press conference, everything. We have to show Minneapolis that, we have to show the world that we're attacking. That's good from the police perspective.
What is it about this damn fentanyl, man?
Well, fentanyl originally is a pain pill that's given to large football players. You talking like them 300-pound linemen that got a fucked up knee or something like that. They got some real pain. It's not supposed to be distributed for motherfuckers to be getting high. It's hella addictive, and these people mix it with meth. This area is for real, like, done. And people got to understand, it's not going to get any better.
I got some audio. And you had some surprising information or some surprising statements about crack. So this is what I heard. I thought it was kind of hilarious, but I think it's better crack than fentanyl. So this is what I found.
I'm up in the morning with the rest. Taste like real. Real. You gave it up. Getting them things for 12. Why y'all ain't got them now? Had the neighborhood hook. Taste like real. I'm up in the morning with the rest. Taste like real. Real. You gave it up. Getting them things for 12. Why y'all ain't got them now?
So the OG, it's an old cat. I guess he was like an old ex-crackhead or something. They talking about, I guess they were singing a song. I don't know who wrote the song, but it said something about crack tastes like rib. So the OG is like, why y'all ain't got it now?
I've dealt with crackheads, and I've dealt with fentanyl users, meth users. Hey, man, I would prefer a crackhead any day of the week.
And he really looks disappointed. He's looking around like, okay, why y'all ain't got why y'all ain't got crack right now? I don't think he wanted the fentanyl. He looked if I sent you this video, you can see the disappointment all over this man's face. Now somebody posted this as comedy.
You still got your traditional crack smokers?
Oh, he's not happy at all. He's not pleased at all. No one has any crack around the vicinity, and he's just kind of looking around the circle like, what the hell?
That's how people that smoke crack, that's how a lot of them graduated to fentanyl, because they couldn't find any crack.
Now, what is this lady? I'm going to play some more stuff, too, and then we're going to get into... this lady here, now, mind you, she's from Colombia. She's a white Hispanic immigrant. Her name is Valentina Gomez. And she has some choice words on Juneteenth. Now, she's not one of these folks that don't know what it is. But she really has a lot of slick stuff to say.
Reparations from slavery and black victimization is about to be shoved down our throats for the most ratchet holiday in America. BLM raised millions.
Now, mind you, this holiday, she said the most ratchet holiday in America. Mind you, this is from the folks. The reason why she's even in this damn country is because foundational blacks. But I'll let her continue to talk.
Holiday in America. BLM raised millions, but what did they do for black lives?
Now, you see how she threw that in there. She said BLM raised millions. What that do for black lives? So first she said Juneteenth was ratchet. Then she said BLM. Most black Americans know that BLM, number one, I think some of those girls that founded BLM, I think some of them ain't from here. I'm not sure, but I think some of them are from, like, one of them is from Nigeria or somewhere, whatever. So she tried to tie BLM in with us. Like, well, no, we don't really rock. Well, most black folks kind of know that BLM is a scam. BLM corporate is a scam. We know that. We've known this for the last couple of years because they've been getting called out. But she says, well, she hit it with the double-edged sword. She used the Jedi mind trick. Well, what has Black Lives Matter done for black people? Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with Juneteenth. Nobody has said anything about that. Nobody has said, well, Black Lives Matter. Juneteenth is solely a foundational black American celebration for inspiration that talks about our lineage and what we've done for this country. And it's a celebration of being free. The freedmen. When people hear the term freedmen, if you're a black American, if your folks came from the American South, the killing fields of the American South, you are a black American. You're a foundational black American. That's where your lineage comes from. Descendants of slaves, foundational black, descendants of American slaves, whatever people want to call it. That's where your lineage comes from. That's your heritage. What does that have to do with Black Lives Matter? That has nothing to do with, she's years late. So she says, well, what have they done for us? We know that they ain't really done anything for the families of Trayvon and Mike Brown and any other scam, any other black ambulance chasing murder. You know, we know that. So I don't understand what she's talking about.
It is outrageous to see people asking for reparations, even though they never went through slavery. These ungrateful people should be celebrated because they were born in the greatest nation to ever exist. Here's a tip. If you don't like America, kindly get the fuck out.
So she's saying, if you don't like America, you could get the fuck out. We don't really have anywhere to go. What is she talking about? She says, I agree with real Candace O. She says she agrees with Candace Owens. So maybe lately, I guess Candace Owens couldn't get her black card. So maybe she might have said something. I don't know what Candace said, but maybe Candace said something.
On reparation.
Candace said that?
Yeah, she said that a lot of times.
So now remember what I told you about an immigrant coon. You're like, how could they be a coon? A tether. Now Candace, she's a tether. Now, she's been trying to hang around with black folks since the white folks kind of kicked her off the show and whatever. She tried to get her little black card back. Keep in mind, she says there's no white supremacy. Black folks shouldn't get no reparations. Yet and still, she was working with the NAACP in 16. You know that thing. So she understands what she's doing. She's not stupid. So, but you see where the racism is in with that.